Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much indeed. You're all very welcome to the Open Window Gallery for the Art of Summer, which I hope will kickstart the start of summer. It's lovely to see so many familiar faces, and for those of you that aren't so familiar, you're even more welcome. So I extend a warm welcome to you. Before I open, or I ask our guest speaker today and introduce him, I would like to mention just one thing that's happening in Rathmines this weekend, and that is Canal Phonic. And it's essentially music, poetry that's kind of going to be coming up in a variety of places in Rathmines over Friday and Saturday. Now, we're supposed to have an acoustic guitarist between 3 and 4, so that's the hope, and so please join us for a glass of wine then if you care to. But he hasn't quite confirmed. But other than that, on the internet you'll find him. So that's just a little by the way. Now, to our speaker of the night, I have great pleasure, as does Robert Moore, in welcoming our as I said, our guest speaker, Robert Lee Mulcahy, who is, to many of you, a well-known entrepreneur, and he's a terrific patron of the arts, not only of the visual, but of the culinary. And we're awfully glad to have him, particularly where we've managed to entice him back from the delights of Monaco, where he said he has
paid for my flight, right? Okay.
Yeah, and he said he was working. Yes. So we're absolutely delighted I am delighted to introduce you to the ever charming Robert Lee Mulcahy.
I think I'm talking with somebody else actually. I'm just looking at somebody who has a camera in their hand. I'm usually used to being behind the camera, so when Deirdre gave me a phone call, I thought, well, you know what, because I kind of like what you're doing here, I thought I'd be very happy to be in front of the camera for a change, and also because it's to me it's art in the community. It's taking art into a certain environment. We all love going to the steely doors of the Georgian buildings and going behind those doors for solo shows. But I like to see group shows in spaces like this, and no pun intended, but it does exactly what it says on the window with an open door, really. So, I mean, if we're to look across even the current landscape, even what's happening in the art world, I'm over back to the States quite a bit, and we're looking at, there's quite a number of galleries that have been shutting, the ones who've been focusing on solo exhibitions, and even not too far from home. And they're moving more into art fairs, which is quite interesting. Art Miami moves next week up to New York, Art Toronto, Art Monaco, we have down in Monaco in July. So, and that's why I would kind of look at this as a virtual art fair in the community. So I think you're kind of a bit ahead of the curve a little bit, if you don't mind me saying so.
No, delighted.
And that would be my opinion anyway. And even looking at even the Art Monaco, that would be bringing about 4,000 works to over a 3-day period in Monaco for a pop-up event. And and even looking at footfall in galleries currently, we're looking at a huge increase in footfall. There's a big appetite for people on the hoof looking at art. And I'm really looking forward to seeing the new Whitney gallery in New York, for example. They're moving from Madison Avenue down to the Meatpacking District, and part of there are over 200,000 pieces that are in storage, compared to 20,000 which are on exhibit in Madison Avenue. So it's just to get those pieces out, And that, you mentioned patronage, that relies on patrons. A lot of the pieces have been given from collections, have been collected and given, so that the public can actually see those pieces. And that's so important in respect to patrons, which is the main aim that we're bringing to the public. Turner with these, was publicised quite a lot last year. I think was offered during his peak was a $250,000 for over 20,000 pieces, 20,000 pieces that he refused. This is for the British public. You go to the Tate Modern, or the Tate Britain, you see many of these pieces on display for the public. This is what it's all about, really. And also for our own, looking at even our own bike collection, you know, the Letouche banking family, for example, who were on number 10 Mulcahy, actually going back some time ago. You know, that building's still intact with a magnificent art collection as a private venue. You know, the bike collection. And in recent times, even people like Tony Ryan, his collection currently in the ORHA. You know, who I would say Lady Miranda gave him a little bit of a pointer in that direction on what to collect, including buildings. You know. So, like, and looking at the artists themselves, you know, like you mentioned, sort of culinary art side. If I kind of bring in a culinary term to say how we should support artists, you know, like a BLT, you know, buy their art. How best can you support an artist? You know, just buy their art, you know, and allow them to create. You know, let them create, and you know, just tell more people about their work. That's what we're doing here. You know, we're not putting any pressure on artists to change direction. They should be allowed to go down the route, and you know, the chips should fall where they are in relation to what they put on their canvas. You know, in relation to my own kind of collecting and experience in the world, I do remember my English teacher, Mr. Jennings, saying one day, you know, that through a Robert Louis Stevenson essay on seeing the world, the hours of truantry were much more important than actually sitting in the classroom. So the next day there was a house auction close to the school, and I did place a number of bids at the age of 15 in the school uniform, and my mother was the beneficiary of that purse. So and we've been collecting ever since. So you know, and then in relation to like sales at the moment, you know, looking at, like we're just saying to Michael Litter there, the sales in the last ORHA exhibition. You know, typically there were government bodies buying, and now it's 95% of the last sales were individuals. You know, and the price mark was kind of 2,000-ish plus. You know, so it's not the preserve of the wealthy collectors anymore. You know, and as I say, the word patron, we're all patrons. If you buy a painting, you are a patron of the arts. You know, if you say no to a play ticket, a theatre ticket, because your friend is an actor on stage, you're a patron. You're supporting, you know, those actors on stage by they getting paid more. That's what it's all about. So it's at all different levels. You know. And I also believe the corporate sector. I mean, I've been in and out of very many corporate collections recently. Corporate sector, you know, have their part to play. And I'd love to see much bigger installation work outside. You know, Nish Kapoor and Ai Weiwei and China, etc. They do very amazing external exhibitions and pieces, you know, and that's down to corporates. And our tax regime here maybe should be twisted a little bit to allow that to happen, for artists to be commissioned to create certain pieces, you know. Finally, I just thought, you know, I'd say, you know, patronage happens in all different levels, you know, and I thought one little story, which Deirdre usually enjoys hearing, over tea. Just an example of like going back in history at a higher level where you see, you know, a beneficiary of funds, you know, becoming a patron in the end. So I had the privilege 2 years ago, Thanksgiving, of sitting next to the archaeologist Iris Love, a private dinner in the 1040 building on Fifth Avenue. So where Jackie O lived, and we were sitting chatting, and I'm always quite inquisitive as to stories of people's backgrounds and stories. So, you know, it was a case of, and I had asked the host to please give me a little synopsis on the person to my left and to my right. And I asked the person to my left, what was it like to take a step back in time on the same day that Neil Armstrong took a step forward? And the story was that she was Iris Love, archaeologist, heir to the Guggenheim and the Rosenthal fortunes. Her aunt, Rosenthal, provided funding for her to go to dig, you know. As I said, her career was in ruins, you know, so she went to digging with her spade, but she pulled 143 people with her on her expedition. And on the same day as, you know, Neil Armstrong took a step forward, and on off Apollo 11, which was funded by her uncle Solomon Guggenheim, she discovered the Temple of Aphrodite. Having listened to the radio, left her room, called her chief archaeologist, and they went up to a crest, and she looked down and thought, the temple must be round. because the goddess of Aphrodite would have been revered from all angles. So the Irish love discovers the temple of Aphrodite, the goddess of love, who is linked to the Luna, the moon, on the same day as her family funds the first step on the moon. So that's the kind of link you look at. And she herself has become serendipity. So she herself has become a great patron of the arts, you know, in between keeping 42 dash hands in a separate house in upstate New York. And you know, so I think scale. So I think in that respect, and a very humble woman, we still keep in touch, you know. So as I say, linking. And I've always believed that artists should be allowed to create. So when you start interfering and trying to put different skills onto artists, you know, I would also believe that, you know, if art is to nourish the roots of our culture, society must set the artist free to follow his vision, wherever it takes them. And in serving his vision of the truth, the artist best serves his nation. And that would be I would agree with that also. Thank you.
Look around and enjoy, and if we can be of any help, Robert Moore, myself, Ellie, my sister Anne, Red, please give us a call. Thank you.